One, two, three, four.
What is
What
up?
is up, party people? Welcome back to Breakfast with Brothers.
What is going on today? How is everyone doing? Great? Good. Love to hear it.
But you will have to tell us something today. Stay tuned for the latter half of this podcast because we will be coming at you with a big surprise. Hopefully it's something you
Facts.
guys tune into and listen because if you do stay tuned in, you may come out with something on the other end. But we won't tell you what it is until it comes time. So stay tuned, keep your ears open, your reading glasses on, and your ears open.
Facts. Factual. It is
So yeah,
secret for
what are
right
we
now.
talking? What are we talking to the people today about, buddy?
Well, I thought we'd do something a little fun, a little interesting, rack your brains a little bit. We're going to be discussing the grandfather paradox.
Ooh.
And so let me just give a lowdown here.
Ooh.
So the grandfather paradox occurs when a time traveler creates a self-contradicting scenario where effect precedes cause. In this example, if you kill your grandfather before he has kids, one of your parents is never born. Consequently, you are never born. So that is the basic concept, and we have some things I guess I'll lay out for you and the listeners.
Do it.
So with the grandfather paradox, there's multiple things that could happen. And I couldn't tell you the exact names of each occurrence, as I have forgotten them. But one lines up with the fact of exactly that. If you kill you kill your grandfather, you cease to exist. That's just sole the fact, you would just be, as soon as you kill your grandfather, you would just fade away like you would, like in, what is that, Endgame? Just with the
with
snap.
the finger snap. Yeah, immediate disintegration.
Yeah, that's essentially like what would happen. You would cease to exist. Your being would no longer be. So there's
So
that.
that's one possibility of the paradox you're saying?
Yep, that's one possibility. Oh my God, one possibility. The next possibility would be the fact of you being caught in that time. So essentially, you would take the place of your now dead grandfather and be stuck in that time. So whatever time that would be, you would be the replacement, as that entire lineage was now, decimated because you killed your grandfather. So obviously he never had, your father or your mother, whatever it might be. They ceased to exist. So technically now you are in existence in only that time frame. So that's another. And then there's
a third possibility.
The third possibility is the fact of time itself or some alternate force is, preventing you from killing your grandfather because of your existence in the future. So take the example of, you're lining up to kill your grandfather, your gun jams, or someone tackles you and prevents you from shooting your grandfather, or, some other occurrence is preventing you from actually following through with doing that. So those are the three the three basics with the grandfather paradox, in essence of what it is. I'm sure we can go on for days on different possibilities of what could happen, and I have some other paradoxes up that we could discuss as well if we run this a little dry. But
we could talk about each possibility because I think that first one is the disintegration. I feel like it being the first possibility, I guess, makes the most sense. And I only say that because if you go back in time, kill your grandfather, and your family doesn't exist, or whoever comes from your grandfather, grandmother, and their relationship would also, I guess, cease to exist. And maybe that would make the most sense. Obviously, time travel isn't a possibility, but it's something that would be theoretical in this instance. So having done the act of time travel itself, I guess you would escape all real possibility of even disintegrating or becoming nothing, because you're already doing something that's part impossible. But I don't know. I mean, I guess if you were going to die on the spot, it would make the most sense, because you're not supposed to exist. You're supposed to be gone. You're not supposed to have been there. But for what had happened with it, everything unfolded the way it did. I don't think any time would change. Everyone just in that family line would pass, I guess. So everything would have happened the same. Your grandfather would have children with your grandmother. Your parents would, be or I should say your dad, I guess in that case. Or I guess your mom, depending on, what side your grandpa ended up having that you came from. But I don't know. I guess it would only make sense to be the most real possibility as the first. Of course, again, it's all theoretical, but I don't know. What's to be said about it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's all theoretical, but I think it's interesting to think about, especially in the sense of like what would happen. And I think in the sense of like pure disintegration, like just existence wiped from, planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a interesting thing to think about, because I think you made a great point on the fact of, well, the lineage would still continue somehow. While it might stop here, there's still like another possibility of continuation of lineage. So while you might disappear in this aspect, your essence could still continue on in a different manner, and you'd become a different person, but you would still continue on existing, just in a different timeline, a different, not a different universe, but a different, in a different person, I guess. It makes sense if you like look at it in the fact of that, your existence as the person you were is no longer continuing.
Yeah.
But your existence can still continue, just in a different possibility.
Well, I guess that would be the the second. It would draw right into the second, because if you kill your grandfather and you take over his position, you become your own grandfather. But I think in that case, everything would change. Everything wouldn't be the same. Like that's, what I was saying earlier about the disintegration part, where if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, everything that's already happened, like you are existing in the present time where you still have parents that had you that came from your grandpa, or whichever side that is, mom or dad side, doesn't matter. But I guess in that sense of the word, or the idea rather, you disintegrating from that time, everything that unfolded still unfolded in that way. So if you went back in time, and his time, obviously nothing happened yet, he didn't have any kids yet, then in that case, the disintegration would have to be in post, like when you went back. I think if you killed your grandfather, you wouldn't die in that moment. You wouldn't disintegrate in that moment. I think it would all unfold after you went back in time to the present moment, where everyone who is a part of that lineage, would pass, would disintegrate, would form into nothing.
Technically speaking, yeah. I mean, it would be a completely different timeline, though, if you had gone back. Obviously, everything would be different. So it wouldn't be the original timeline that you were from. It would be something completely different. You've now altered all of your lineage, all of your memories and things that had happened would be completely different. The timeline that you were from has ceased to exist, or is stopped just through your lineage. But now you're entering a different and completely new timeline if you're going back to the time you were originally from.
So you think that everything that unfolded in the present time wouldn't be the same if you went back? Like, say, for example, you did survive. Nobody disintegrated in your family line. They all somehow existed in present time without the help of your grandfather, now that he's dead. So I almost wonder, I guess it really wouldn't be a possibility. But if there was the possibility that it existed that way, that everything, as far as the people who were there in the present time would stay, they would just be furthering different outcomes. Like somehow that person that was your mom or your dad still existed, but because of some other fashion. Like that person that exists as your parental figure is different. You're different. Now, I don't know if that's even relatively possible, but I guess in that case, if you're killing your grandfather and everything changes, but those people still exist in the present time, then what? I guess there would probably be a lot of overlapping. There would probably be a glitch in the matrix. There would be a lot of, I don't know, there would be a lot of. I got nothing.
It's kind of like a mind fuck because
Well, absolutely.
Because
it's
it doesn't
paradox.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of it. With returning to like a timeline, even if you like followed through and killed your grandfather and were successful and didn't die right there on the spot, like you didn't evaporate or, you know, become eviscerated in some manner.
Yeah.
You know, obviously if you were to go forward in time again to your original timeline, there is going to be you know, obvious differences because
yes.
again, like you said it, you wouldn't be the same person because of your now different lineage. I mean, that's why there's the argument like about the fact of you being the same person. You know, how can you exist if, you know, the people that created you through the time are no longer existing? There's no possible way for you to exist in a future timeline because of you killing your grandfather. So that leads us to the final view, which is there are going to be things that completely stop you from killing your grandfather. One, to protect your timeline, but two, to protect the balance of the timeline itself. So that's in the fact of, you know, your gun jamming, some other thing keeping you from actually shooting your grandfather, some other person keeping you from shooting your grandfather. If the possibility of time travel is on the table, there's obviously going to be other time travelers there. So there's a good chance that there's someone that could be making sure everyone who's time traveling isn't fucking things up.
Well, it'll be like one of those Doctor Strange moments straight out of that MCU when the person who's in control of, I guess you could call him the gatekeeper in this case, puts you into that ghostly form and shows you the lessons. You know, like, don't do this, don't do that. And then they show you what you can do and things like that. I guess in that sense, the fiction of it all would come into play very heavily. Because if in that case, the time traveler is protecting you from destroying the timeline that you exist on, then there probably is a real possibility that it could happen that way, as in not being able to kill your grandfather, whatever that looks like.
Personally, and I'll state the view that I have on this. Most times I like to just listen to what other people have to say, but it's just me and you really talking. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that there's something that would stop me from doing it because in every sense it makes the most sense. And I'll explain my reasoning. So if you go back in time, you exist in a future time. It's already just, you know, it's already on the table.
Yeah.
If you go back in time to see your grandfather and to kill him, this event has already happened in the basis of time travel. So if you go back in time, then that moment in time when you get there and you reside in that time whenever your grandfather was alive or before he had, you know, even thought about having a family at that point, that has already happened in your existence.
Yeah.
You existed within that time frame of traveling back in time.
Right.
So with that, it's already impossible for you to be able to kill him, considering that it's already happened. So if you even tried to like kill your grandfather, it's already known that you failed because you're still existing in the future timeline that you came from.
Yeah, but I think if you go back with the intent to do that, that thing could still be possible. Yes, there's still outside force factors and there's things that could happen, but previous to you making the decision to go back in time, I assume at that point it's not new knowledge, like people are able to time travel. So who's to say that some other event didn't already happen where someone went back in time and did something else to alter the timeline, which still could turn out to you being born, having the family that erupted from your grandfather. So I guess in that case, if you're going back and you were being stopped, I think at that point it might come down to a moral dilemma. Because realistically, if you wanted to make something happen, you could. And the outcome of it would be something everyone in that timeline would have to deal with, not just you. But I guess in that sense, if the possibility is real, other people have already done it, there's been time travel. So at that point, it becomes a moral dilemma of, well, why am I back in time to kill my grandfather? And of course, it's just, this paradox that is more riddled with confusion and all theoretics. But I think it comes down to, at that point, a moral issue. Because if in the first one you disintegrate when you do it, that's just the fact that you did it. If the second one is talking about you replacing your father after you did it, that's again assuming that you did it. And the third, what was the end frame possibility? It was just factors acting on it not happening, right?
Yeah,
so that just brings about just a different line of the story or line of the theory, because then in that point it's probably not any outside forces other than your own mental thought, your own mental battle.
I don't know. I think there's some balance within this, because obviously we have no idea if there's actually a possibility of time travel, right? Yeah. We don't really know what to expect. We don't know like the balance that it has within our actual physical world, right?
Yeah.
The possibility of actually being able to time travel.
Sure.
Kind of a crazy notion, So obviously we have no idea of, I guess, the rules or the things that would happen if that were the case.
Yeah.
I think of time travel as something is just that, the fact that we've travel back in time. I don't think we're able to necessarily change anything. I think we're only able to, view it in essence of like nothing. Like you can still act upon things, but you cannot act upon things that are much greater, that will alter a timeline. I think there's rules to it, to the point of that, and I think it could just come down to a moral dilemma of actually being able to choose whether or not you should do it. I'm sure that is a possibility if this is if we're speaking in a truthful term, and time travel does exist.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't know, and I'd like to believe that it's something that we cannot do, or that time itself will prevent us from doing it.
Well, I think every good storyline goes, there's the person who tells you what you should and shouldn't do, and then there's your own choice. So I feel like if there is the real possibility that you're going to do this act, that it could be done, no matter what forces act on you. I think you would be able to pull through and be able to do anything, whether or not that's killing your grandfather or buying shares of a certain stock, or I don't know, figuring out how to build electric cars 100 years before it was possible, or something like that. Just thinking about the possibility of it, there is real consequence to be had, but there also is real possibility that you could do what you went there to do. I think, yes, the moral dilemma would exist, but also if the mission is to do A, then you can do A. You just know there will be consequences with it. And in that case, the consequences might be you not existing in the future, or your timelines just change to the point of the political climate, the, I guess the environmental factors, and then also everything in between, mental, spiritual, physical things that alter with people, with life, animals, day to day, the food you eat for dinner. I mean, I don't know. I think at that point you get to, yes, battle with your internal thoughts and be like, is this really the right choice to make? But in that case, again, I guess I bring up that possibility we were talking about time travel existing and being possible. If people are going to travel and do something and change times, then things have probably already been changed. If people are traveling, if people are jumping time loops, things are probably already changed. And whether or not that was reflected in the place that you came from in the future, and I guess what would be the present, then who's to say you doing something wouldn't just continue furthering that change that other people have already committed to?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you make a valid point within that. I don't know. It's interesting. It's all like, it's like the concept of, oh yeah, I'm going back in time to kill Hitler, Or
Yeah,
like,
right, exactly. And of course, there would come consequences with that too, good or bad,
right.
everything in between. But being able to go and do that is still possible. I think the outside forces would be more warnings. I don't think there would be anything that could prohibit someone from doing an act, whether or not that's killing or anything else. But I think it would still be a real possibility. Because if you can get there on a mission with something in mind to do, it can be done. And if there's a force that's going to act on it, it might happen, but that force that acts on you to not do something may also change the outcome for the future as well, which might be another whole thing to talk about. Because if you go back to do something to change the future timeline, you get crossed up. Maybe the whole event unfolding of you trying to kill your grandpa sent him into hiding and he just died a bachelor or something like that. Everything you do then might also react into something even crazier than you originally anticipated.
Hold that note right there, because thinking ahead of you right now, I got some more paradoxes involving time travel. So there's this one called predestination paradox. It arises when the actions of persons traveling back in time become part of the past events and may eventually cause the event they are trying to block from happening. This creates a temporal causality loop through which event A in the past impacts event B in the future. In turn, it causes event A to happen with a circular event loop, ensuring that the time traveler does not change history. Any attempt to block something from occurring in the past will only lead to causing itself instead of blocking it. This paradox tries to show that events are always predestined to happen in a particular way, and whatever has occurred must occur.
So then that basically says that no matter what forces act on you, things will unfold how they unfold anyway.
Things will continue to happen how they were supposed to happen. So whatever has already happened has happened, and there's no changing it. Predestined.
But isn't that the point of going back in time, to change it?
Not necessarily, but I mean, yes, with the intention of going back in time, yes.
To change what happened.
Right. But, it's all predestined, that there's nothing that you can do to change it since it already happened. And I think that feeds into, like, my view with the whole thing. But there's other paradoxes we can think about as well here. There's the bootstrap paradox. It's a kind of paradox in which information or a person or an object sent back in time creates an infinite loop where the person or the object has no observable origin. In other words, it behaves as if it has no origin. It is also called the ontological paradox. Ontology is a section of philosophy that deals with the existence or nature of being. So, like, you would travel back in time, essentially, and where you would have, like, there would be nothing for you to go back to because you have left that timeline. You exist only in and of yourself. You have no origin.
Well, I think our little paradox would probably null what was the second paradox you said? The something paradox? Not the ontological, the second one you brought up.
The second one I brought up was the bootstrap paradox. It's the ontological paradox.
No, before that.
Oh, the predestined paradox?
Yeah, predestined. Because I think in that case, if you theoretically have the possibility to time travel, you can make that adjustment because you are time traveling. You're already doing something you shouldn't be doing, which, that's not really a legal or legal thing. It's just a matter of, if you could time travel, there's things that can be changed because of the travel of time. I think in that case, if you're time traveling, you're already messing with the system. This predestined paradox becomes
orthodox.
null because it wouldn't make any sense. Like, if you're going back to do something different than what has occurred, your time traveling is already messing up what's predestined. There was not any predestined to time travel when your grandfather was thinking about having babies, and then all of a sudden time travel became possible. So then you were like, you know what? Let's change that. So yeah, I guess outside forces and the disintegration could still be a possibility, but I think it puts too little use of what the predestined paradox talks about if you could time travel. Something that wouldn't have been a possibility had you not made it happen to go do something and change events.
I think the predestination paradox is a good example or a good idea. And I think the ontological paradox is kind of interesting as well. The idea that you have like nothing, no origin, you are yourself. I think the predestination paradox gives kind of a good concept into something that we might see as like impossible. And I think it's...
Yeah, because I feel like nothing's everything could be changed. Like that's the thing. Everyone on a day-to-day basis, they could say they're doing X, Y, and Z, but then in reality the next day they only do X and Y. Z became an afterthought. And then right there, everything changes pace. Everything changes course. And I think...
I mean, sure, like, yeah, things can be predestined.
Wait, time out. Everyone that's listening, this is our cue to tell you that we're giving away a $10 gift card to those who comment on YouTube. First comment wins it. Anyone else? Kick rocks. But the point is, if your first comment, you can win this gift card. That's the big surprise we were talking about. Wanted to get you guys involved, give the more often and more frequent listeners a chance to get a little bread from the Breakfast Brothers. So if you're listening, first comment on YouTube, $10 gift card to a place of your choice. We were thinking McDonald's or like Target or something like that. So if you have something better in mind, maybe Starbucks, we'd love to hear it. First comment wins it all. Let us know. Keep the comments rolling, and we're going to continue. Thanks for pausing with us.
But yeah, I think the predestined paradox is honestly something that could be possible, considering the notion of like history already happening. Now I understand what you're saying, like where, like, well, you're going off the example of free will. We can do whatever the hell we want if we're capable of doing such thing. We have the choice. We have the choice to do whatever we want. We have the choice to be able to do whatever we want. And if we're talking about time travel, something that is probably a little bit more impossible to us in the real world, but in this hypothetical it is possible, then we are able to change history as it is. Sure, I think that is definitely the case if we're discussing it. But I think there's some validity to the idea of predestination because time itself in that period has already happened. If you understand what I'm meaning. Through the existence of yourself, these events have already happened, will continue to happen. Is there things that could change or warp, time itself? I think absolutely. I think there's a possibility of that happening. But we don't know for certain if that is the case. So I honestly believe that there could be some form of predestination. I do believe that there is a form of free will within the time traveling concept. Like I think there are things that we can change, but I don't think we can change everything. I think there's some sort of line driven where it is going to happen whether we try to do something or not.
I think there's probably a threshold for what that looks like. Because, for example, if you have a change day to day, like say, for example, you really wanted to have pizza on Wednesday, but then you ended up having meatloaf, that's not going to change the outcome of many things in the long run. Maybe your bowel movement the next day, but it's not going to be something that is bad news bears. Like, for example, when I think about predestined things to happen, you look at death. Everyone's going to die. It's going to happen eventually. You look at, maybe buying your first car, buying a home, maybe some type of stock market crash, something in the economic sector of the world, maybe environmental issues, a volcano erupts, the earth implodes into 70 million pieces in the year 3100 or something like that. I'm sure there's those big events that meet that categorical threshold where they are predetermined, like it will happen no matter what, like it can't be stopped. It's going to happen here, now, and then. I'm sure there's a leeway of things that can break into time of when it happens. I'm sure there's a scale for that. But on the entirety of the existence of people and events that happen, those predetermined things have to hit that threshold. But then there's other things that exist on the side of free will that you have the ability to change your outcome and your family and your future's outcome for what would probably be small potatoes, compared to a predestined outcome. So I think they coexist, I feel like.
Yeah, you make a good point with that, but it's also like obviously I stated it as well, like some of these things are predestined to happen, but we're looking at our own lineage, looking at our own family. Is that something that is predestined or set in stone for it to happen? And I think you said it best, like we're like little potatoes, to like the actual bigger picture of all of it.
Right, the pizza and the meatloaf on Wednesdays. That's the thing, where it's those threshold, those things that can be different.
But do we know if there is a threshold? Do we know, if these things are actually, valid and true within, how we're reasoning in it? And I don't think we'll ever know, because I don't know if we'll ever be able to time travel.
But with that being said, I think we should leave some of these ideas up to the viewers. If anyone wants to comment on this, send your thoughts, send what could be 1, 2, or the third possibility of our grandfather paradox chat, but leading into other things. So give us your thoughts, give us your ideas. We'd obviously love to hear more, because this is something people talk about for jobs, people that do this for a living, and we only give you a half hour of a little bit of a touch. So definitely give us your thoughts, send us anything you could do, and don't forget to comment. First comment on YouTube wins a special gift card. So send them out, Ian.
Yeah, so at this point, if you're new here, take a listen to us on Spotify or YouTube, whichever you're listening to. Subscribe to us, follow us. We appreciate you guys, taking a listen out of your day. I know it's a little tough for some people to be able to sit and listen for a half hour. And I mean that seriously. I'm not joking, but I hope you all have a wonderful day. Make sure to subscribe, check us out, tell your mother about us. I don't know. Do something. But on that note, I hope you all have a lovely day, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
I'm walking the bull, out for the out for the out for the out for the out for the
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.